Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of the Lovely Biertrix on Wisp Sports. I'm the Lovely Biertrix, and at Wisp Sports we believe women in sport deserve equal coverage. This month we're talking to the knowledgeable Juke Boxx about getting the most out of footage watching as an individual and as a coaching body. So welcome back, Juke Boxx.
Hi, happy to be here virtually.
Happy off-season.
Happy off-season. What's that?
Well, before people get knee-deep into the Prosecco, mulled wine and mince pies, I thought it would be great for us to just chat a little bit about productive things that you can do in your off-season to help your game going into next year, and also some sort of hints and tips around the dreaded footage watching. Now, I say the dreaded footage watching because as an announcer, I dread watching footage of myself. And as a podcaster, I also dread listening to myself. So I'm just thinking about the skaters out there who finished their season. They've been watching all these amazing games happening over at the championship weekend and all of the postseason tournaments. And they're looking back at themselves and they know that they're going to be focusing on all the things they're doing wrong and beating themselves up. So how do we change that mindset?
I think, like, first and foremost, footage is something that it has to be like doable. So first tips, like my first 3 tips would be, it has to be something that's like you can maintain. Because if it's something that you only do in the off season, like, yeah, now is a great time to kickstart it and maybe dip your toes in for the first time. But ideally, this is something you want to do throughout the entire season. So no matter what kind of things you take away from this little chat we're having, like, of what things you want to take, make sure it's like doable and ingestible, and whatever you're going to do, you don't just end up with a bunch of footage that you never watch or an intensely complex Google document that never gets utilized. So I think, like, one, that's like the main tip that I have. The next thing is, like, it does take time. So being a roller derby fan helps a lot. Like, not just liking to play, but enjoying the sport, enjoying watching other people play, enjoying, like, what I like to think about with footage is the story of the game, you know, how, not just like what happens with like penalties or strategic, it's like the emotional, like, fortitude you see from some teams and the strategies that get applied during key parts, and the ability to minimize mistakes or what causes teams to make mistakes. So for me, like, footage watching and being a fan go hand in hand because I love the emotional and athletic story of a game. So when it comes to watching, like what you're talking about with watching footage of yourself, like, the very first thing you need to do is you need to be kind to yourself. I think the first time you watch any footage that involves you and your team, you're going to have to watch it more than once, because the first time you watch it, you're not going to pay any attention to anything other than what you're doing on track. So honestly, you might as well just watch it and skip the jams that you're not in and watch the game, because you're going to be very distracted by that if you don't just get it done with. So watch it, take it in. For me, a lot of times in games that I watch back that I dread watching back, I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as it felt at the time. And yes, I make mistakes, but for me, I kind of get, like, when a game goes not the way I wanted it, a lot of times when I go back and watch footage, I'm like, oh, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it did. But I know that that's very dependent on your personality of what you expect from yourself and how it felt in the moment. So first and foremost, like, do the first watch, do it casually, you know, enjoy a beverage of your choice, whether it's a beer or a cuppa or whatever, and just, like, get it done with and out of the way. If you have anything, like, if you have anything that you like see that you want when you're watching footage, I would encourage you to timestamp it. So the way that I like to watch footage is, got a Google Doc, got a column for the time on the video. I cannot stress this enough. Always timestamp your footage from the time of the video, not the jam time, not the jam, the time of the actual file of the video. Because if you ever want to go back and find anything again, or have someone else find where it is, it's much easier to be like, it's at 1 minute and 30 seconds than it is to be like jam 4 with 15 seconds left in the jam. As you go along, timestamping things along the way that you notice that maybe you want to come back to is a really good practice. And that's a lot of what I will end up doing when I take notes for footage anyways, is I will timestamp things. And if I do something cool, I will timestamp it and I will be like, make this into a GIF.
Excellent. I guess GIFs is a really great way as well to kind of replay a certain piece of action that you've done, to be able to look at it and really analyze it. Do you recommend doing many, or are you thinking maybe a handful from each game? Or
I mean,
what's your method?
I think the thing is, again, this is the type of thing that it's like, it can be manageable. It has to be manageable for you. So for me, making GIFs is actually quite easy. Like sieving through footage to find the timestamps of the GIFs is a lot harder. If you're looking through it, and I mean, using GIFs, I've done a team meeting when I was a captain where I found footage of every person and added a GIF. It was like from playoffs or something. And for the post-playoffs footage review, I made a GIF of every player. And it was just really cool. It was really fun as a team to be like, to watch like kind of a highlight reel of every single player on the team. But I think in general, I think it's a very powerful tool, not just for like cool stuff that you've done on track, but for like breaking down a strategy and watching it over and over, watching how someone uses their body. I think it's a really, really great tool. So if you get comfortable with it, it's actually really easy. I just use makeagif.com, and all you have to do is add the link, or if you have the file, and then you put in the timestamp from the video and how many seconds long and the quality you want, and it makes it into a short MP4 or a GIF. And it's as simple as that. Or else Giphy.com, I think you can make them on Giphy as well now, but I don't know how the quality is on that one. So I think in general, for any of the different kind of like review of footage, I think it's an incredible tool. So it's not just something for promotion, but then the other aspect is you can then use this for promotion. GIFs get great like traction online for your social media. So if you use them for your footage, give them to your PR team and they can put together cool stuff to share, and it's great social content as well.
Nice. So there's absolutely no excuse for anybody listening now to not be able to go ahead and GIF themselves and GIF their teammates. Just GIF with love, everybody. So I love this idea of kind of looking at what you've done really well, and also looking at the strategies that you've put out, and you've been training all year, you know, and you're in your big games, and then you're going to GIF them and have a good look at them and really be able to break down what went well, what didn't go so well. But I wonder, do you have any tips on how to stop those brain weasels from coming in when you're watching the footage? Because I can remember back in the dark days, the dark distant ages when I did play and I'd watch footage of myself, and I maybe would miss actually the good things that I was doing, or the strategies that I was able to implement really well out on track, because I was concerned about other things, and I was maybe distracting myself a little bit from actually what I was doing great. So do you have any kind of thoughts around that at all, or is that just about the being kind to yourself, really?
I think that this is something that is actually incredibly cultural. Like as being a coach and being on team in American teams, being a player on a team in like coaching in Australia and New Zealand and in England and in like in so many different places, I think that it's very dependent on like I hate to say, like, it's a very English thing to be very apologetic and like and really hard on yourself. And I think that it doesn't just come down to that. I'm sure everyone from all different places have that, but I do think that there is a much deeper rooted um, cultural aspect of how you are as a person and a sports player. And I think that like in America, and a lot of times like the Antipodeans, they'll be like, well, whatever, like we're the best. And there's like a much different athletic culture there. And I think that, sorry, this was a very long answer to a short, simple question.
No, I think it's great.
But I think that that's something to think about is like, you want to have the first time you watch footage of yourself, you're going to have like an emotional response, whether that's like, oh, hell yeah, I'm awesome. Or, oh my God, is that what I really look like? Can I even bend my knees at all? And I feel like when I came back from pregnancy, I actually felt that a lot. I was really dreading watching the footage because of the player I was used to watching as myself and the player I was after, having gone through a pregnancy, and being like, oh my God, it's like watching what I used to do, but in slow motion. But I think the thing is like, it's not just about being kind to yourself. It's about like recognizing the wins, recognizing what you're doing in training. I think as much as you can to like reflect back onto what you're working on, and try to see those things shine through is really important, because you can't expect yourself to be good at stuff that you haven't been practicing, right? And you're not going to be able to do it all at once. So focusing back on to like, what have we been working on? Have I seen myself do that? Okay, there's obviously always going to be like chinks in the armor that we need to address, but maybe we also need to look at the things that we have been working on, and were we able to execute, or was I as an individual been able to execute, or did I have individual goals in the lead up to this? And I think that also is another thing, is like, if you don't have individual goals that you've been working on, you can go and look at yourself and be like, why am I not the very best player ever? But it's just so directionless. You need to have a narrower focus to be able to hold on to things that are good, inherently good.
Well, I feel completely seen by that answer as a British person whose knees never bend. So, but interestingly, there, what you're saying about goals and the fact that if you have goals and you're not reviewing footage of yourself, how do you know you're achieving them, or where do you know where you need to work a little bit harder or differently or smarter or whatever? Is it worthwhile watching footage of? Is it worthwhile comparing yourself as a skater to other skaters out, maybe on higher performing teams, higher ranked teams, where you see skaters who are similar to you? Do we have any value in watching other players and wondering how we can take that on board?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say for comparison. I mean, I guess like I just not in comparison in the way of like, oh, this, I want to be better than this other player, but I think in a way that is like similarities of, this player has a very similar body shape to me. How do they use their body? Yeah.
Maybe I meant more like being able to identify with that
Yes.
skater rather than compare myself. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think that is completely valuable. And that's another really good time for gifts. Like, you can look for teams, or look for players in the top teams, and look at how they're using their bodies, and what, their center of gravity, their height, their weight, what kind of skills are they using to get what they need to get done. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that try to like kind of fit a square peg into a round hole, and they like are really specific about how you're supposed to do things, and never do this and always do this and use your body this way. And I'm much more of the philosophy of like, this is the overall goal of what we're trying to get done. Can you do it without committing penalties? Great. Make a solution with your body. Here are some tools of different ways that works for me, but obviously it's not going to work for everyone. And I think that there is such a plethora of different body types in our sport that have found a way to be so successful. And it's really cool. It's a really cool aspect of our sport. And so I think it's really important to look for those other people that are like you, and how you can use your body, because I'm not going to be able to give the best advice to someone who's really tall and has a high center of gravity in comparison to someone who has like a body like mine.
Yeah, I completely get that. And I feel like you're absolutely right in that the brilliant part of our sport is that, you know, we do have so many different body types. You can see yourself reflected in other teams. You can identify yourself definitely with other skaters that found those workarounds. So you don't have to try and invent anything new. You just need to kind of figure out what they're doing and try and put that into practice yourself out on track. And that is the brilliant thing about having so much footage available to us.
Like right now, currently with watching Champs, I'm going to go and look at the Smacktivists and what they have done with beating that brace with this like little 2-step spin that just seemed to work again and again. And I'm like, oh man, I need to go and gift that and take a look at what they were up to, because it was so excellent and so well done and such a tiny like footprint on track for how much space it took. It was really excellent. So for example.
No, you give me your examples, because I think they're going to be way better than mine somehow.
I mean, I think the thing is like, you can take, it doesn't have to necessarily be someone that is exactly your body type. It can just be a skill. But I think in general, like, you know, being a fan and being excited about Derby, like I watched that game because it was an exciting game to watch, right? And it was also the WIFTA championships. but it was, you know, I noticed those things, and now I know the game that I want to go back and watch again and find the timestamps for that. So that's what I mean. Like, being a fan of the sport goes a really long way for the ability to like watch footage, because hopefully it's not like pulling teeth to get it done. Which is another like really good point, is like when we've had people to watch footage in the team, we always try to encourage people who already do it to be like, this is your team job. You know, like, watch footage. Obviously, they're not going to give you specific feedback about yourself, but we try to have people who like to do it be the people that kind of take the reins on making sure footage watching gets completed. Because if someone doesn't like enjoy doing it, like, chances are they're not going to sit there and watch a single game and hit pause and repeat and watch it for 2 hours the way that like Ballistic or I would do. So, yeah.
You need to have a very particular set of skills and likes for that, which is great if you can identify that on your team and have that person play to their strengths, definitely, if it's not you. But everybody should be doing it regardless anyway, of course.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, being a fan of the sport that you play is probably a really good thing for a lot of reasons.
I find it really useful, just in general. So when we're watching ourselves, we're watching our team are watching themselves, they're watching the team. How can we bring that into our training? So thinking about going into our sports halls next year, we're all feeling fresh. We've had Christmas off, New Year's off, we've done our gifts, we've timestamped all our videos. How do we take that into our training to make it meaningful?
So when I was in London, they picked up some tips from a sports group called DSA, which is Dynamic Sports Academy. And they had some really like strict rules on the way that they presented footage. They didn't just like get together and like throw a game on and eat food and watch the game. They did, and so they kind of like tailored that for brawling. And after every single like big event, like a tournament or a tour, or even if it was a one-off game, we'd have a footage review of the game. And instead of like getting together and watching it, it would be like leadership or the people on the footage team would have already reviewed the footage. They'd review the footage, timestamp everything that they noticed. So they'd timestamp, again, the video clock. And they would timestamp it, say what happened, and they would either just mark it good or improve. And then you just start to see repeated things telling you the story of the game. We repeatedly did X, Y, or Z really well. We repeatedly need to improve in this area in our game. And so then we would have a team meeting. We would do some sort of team building. We would do the review. And the review basically was like a presentation of a few clips, like 3 or 4 for the good, 3 or 4 for the improve. The good was like going back to our training, going back to the things that we have been working on and be like, these are the things that we've been working on and we executed them. And the improve was like the story of not just the players that it happened to in these specific clips, but this was the improve represented by all of us. So what was a really important aspect of this, and it seems like it might not be, but like in the good, we would just say like, it's really awesome that the Brawling Jammer did this in this instance. And then when it was improve, again, it was not like a specific player like, oh, Juke was out of position in this situation. It was like the Brawling defensive player did X, Y, or Z. So it was a representation. Those clips were a representation of the story of the game and the story of the team in the game. And so I feel like that did a really good job of taking away people feeling shit for, sorry, I don't even know if I can say, the people feeling badly for making mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes and errors in every game, you know, like it's just like, this is the story of the things that we need to work on. And I feel like it was a really good way to do it. Obviously it's never great to be the person that, that is in one of the improved clips, but it helps inform what you need to do. And then the other aspect was like, we weren't allowed to, we weren't allowed to discuss it, which my very first meeting, I was not given this information. And I was in one of the improved clips. And I was like, well, I was doing this, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, Juke, this is not how this works. You're not allowed to talk. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
I just want to tell my side of the tale.
Yeah, exactly. I need to justify why I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. But that's the most important aspect, was like, this wasn't a discussion. This was, someone has put together a summary of the story of the game. And this is helping us to understand what we've done well, what we've trained well, what we continue to do well, who we are, and what we need to improve as a team. And that helps us direct our next steps. And I think it was a really, really productive way to do footage. And it just seemed to work really well for us.
I actually really love it, because I get the sense there that you sort of spot those trends and themes, especially in the, well, I guess in both the good and improved side of like, yeah, we've got this nailed, we can just continue working on it, or something's not going right in our training, or we're not doing it, we're not all grasping that kind of idea of where we need to be in this strategy, and that's why it's in the improved section. But when you can spot that going through a game of where it happens time and again, you're able then to really start picking apart where your weaknesses as a team lie, right? So it feels like a really clever way to do that and present it.
And it's something that is time intensive for the people that are doing it. But honestly, it was like a number of people that were doing it. We'd all put in our notes in the same sheet, and you could just look at it and see the same sort of pieces of feedback again and again. And once you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is obviously a big thing that is missing, this is a good thing that we've been doing, then, you know, it's kind of, it's the story of the game. It's the trends. You don't want to just like completely get really intense about tiny, minute things when it comes to review. You want to think about like big picture of guiding your training. I think the only thing that you want to really look at for tiny stuff is like specific skills for yourself or for others or for your own penalties. And that's one thing I forgot to mention about like watching yourself. This is good homework for everyone. If you're going to take the time to watch yourself, have a copy of the stats and look at your penalties. Look at the situations of how you got your penalties. Was it were you short on players? Was it the end of the jam? So many people get penalties consistently at the end of a jam doing something desperate, where if they just let the jam ended, they would just be off track and it'd be fine. But I mean, it's an important thing of like understanding again that like that story of the game and how it impacts you as an individual player and how you can minimize those penalties. So understanding more about your own penalties, when you get the penalties, why you get the penalties, is it a mixed bag? You know, those kinds of things. You're looking for trends, and that should be something above all that I would say that every player should be doing for themselves, because just knowing what penalties you get is like, okay, but if you have no context, how are you going to improve it? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Your stat sheet's only going to tell you so much, isn't it? It's really about then the context that you're doing that in. You're absolutely right. Okay, so that's all great, and we're all improving ourselves. We're giving like wild things. We're understanding the context of our penalties. We're showering our teammates with love gifts, and we've got some pretty structured ideas of how we thematically review our games and tell that story. I just wanted to pick up as well the fact that you weren't able to contextualize your needs improving. To me, kind of feels like that's a great way to just remove the pressure from that skater who's watching the footage as well, to try and justify what they were doing. You know, it's like, it happened, that was the end of it, and we just need to improve on it, and, you know, kind of let's move on. So I enjoyed hearing that.
Yeah, and it's a problem for the whole team too. You know what I mean? These are things that, like, you know, we either haven't gotten to yet or we just haven't unlocked. We haven't unlocked our solution for this situation. And as a team, that's what we need to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any benefit at all in watching our opponents? Like, we've got our game, we've got our strategies, we know we're going to go out there and smash it out on track. What's the point in watching them? They're only going to detract away from us, right? Or
Definitely, there are. So there's two different stories I want to quickly go into. One was a situation where Minnesota played Denver, and it was a game at RollerCon, and it was like they knew every single thing about us, and it was like, skills wise, we were both like very skilled, good teams, and it should have been a close game, and they completely destroyed us so badly. It took us so long to put any points on the board, and it was like the kind of thing where you're just like, they know everything. Like, it was so, and I feel like Denver is really good at that. Like, I think that's the thing, is like, it is so important to know your opponent. I mean, there's a certain aspect of, you don't want it to be detract and like not have you like play your own game, because you need to play your own game and you can't focus solely on the opponent. But the second story I have is actually something that happened with Minnesota, and it was like at a time where we didn't really know like what kind of team is Minnesota, what style of play are we known for. And so we decided that season, while we were kind of like having a coming of age moment of like, who are we as a team, we just decided what we're going to do is, for this year, we're going to like look at each team we're going to play. We're going to find the thing that they're the best at. We're going to train that really hard and be better, or like do it like they do, and beat them at it with our own like flair on it. And it was great. We stylistically played so many different teams, and it was at a time we were in like, I don't know, the 20s, 30s. So it wasn't teams that were like blowing us out of the water. It was like similar skilled teams with very different styles. And that was great, actually. Like, we got to look at what they did, pick what would work for us, and it really like built a big repertoire of like style of play and skills for ourselves, until we kind of like figured out who we were as a team. And so I would say, if you're kind of just starting out and you're kind of like in that place, it's a good way to like steal everything from your opponents that you can. Don't just use it to like deconstruct them. Use it to like come up with ideas and steal everything that you can. That was really good for us. The other thing I would say, so with watching your opponents, absolutely. Like, if you come into a game more prepared than the other team for the things that they're especially good at, then it goes a really long way. Obviously, this is much more difficult at tournaments than it is in a one-off or, you know, like a double header game. But I know that like last year, or was it last year? God, now I don't even know. When I played at playoffs the last time for the game against Atlanta, it was like the 4-versus-5 game, and we knew we were were likely to play Atlanta, and they're a really great team, and we knew it was going to be like a nail biter close game. And we definitely trained loads of things, because if we didn't win that game, we weren't even in contention for champs. And sadly, we ended up losing to Montreal. We didn't really train specific things for Montreal, because it's hard to do that. But for that like critical game to even get you a seat at the table, we definitely had trained loads. So I think it's absolutely important to like look at those critical moments and what you can do. You can't train for obviously everything, but specifically, but if you can look at the footage and help you look at, you know, obviously I say it 1,000 times, but trends and the story of a game, looking at, especially like when you look at the story of a game, like what puts that opponent under pressure? You know, what did the team that they're playing in that footage do to really rattle them or weaken them? Like, look at the strength of the team's. This is difficult to talk about. It's difficult to like say they're the opponent of your next opponent. um, do you follow
I
me?
do. Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. Okay. But look at what the successes are of the person that is playing against them. The other thing I'd say is like rotations. If you have a strong inkling of like your one pack or your certain jammer is going to do well against a certain style of their packs or jammers, that's important to know. What do they typically do with their rotation? And key players of like if they have one player who is like miles ahead of everyone else. For example, like, you know, if you have like a Bonnie Thunders on a team and you manage to get lead against Bonnie Thunders, then if you manage to get lead against any of the other players that is not Bonnie Thunders, run the jam, because it means Bonnie Thunders is not on the track.
I feel like you might have been shouting that this year a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's like stuff that, you know, if you don't even know that they have one jammer that's so much more successful than all their other jammers, then, you know, that's something that you glean from footage, right? And so thinking about like how you can change your rotations based on like inequities in their jammer or blocker or key player rotation, that's definitely something to look forward to take advantage of.
And how far?
And then the last, go ahead.
You tell me your last tip, and then I'll ask questions.
The last one would be starts. I think that especially with how much starts have changed, like having a good understanding of what they like to do for their starts is really important, because lead is critical. You get lead, you control the game. And so I think having a good idea of what to expect, what kinds of things you can do to rattle them in their starts. Those would be the main things I would try to glean from footage. And then the rest is like me just watching it and noticing things, like noticing things that seem to be really effective for them that's different from other teams that we've faced in the past.
How far back would you look at an opponent's team? So like when you're reviewing them, you're going to come up and play them. Do you look at their last couple of games? Do you maybe think about taking in their games as a season if you can, or is that too much detail? Can you overwatch an opponent? Is there any benefit to watching lots and lots of footage of them?
I mean, I think you can definitely overwatch an opponent. The thing is, it's like, you don't want to be like, why are you so obsessed with me? You know, like, you know, you don't want to be so focused on it. And that's the thing when it comes to watching footage of opponents. This isn't something I would tell every person on the team that they have to do either, because this is something that could have a negative impact on certain players on your team. If they're not fans, then they just get like really nervous about it, then that's not a good, useful way to go into a game for them, right? So I'd say obviously as recent as possible, because, you know, rosters change, people change, teams grow. But I mean, anything in the last season, more recent the better, really. A good opponent or a good trouncing, I'd say. If they get trounced, if they're not really challenged, then it's not as useful. You can kind of see them execute what they want to execute, but like it's always better to see an opponent that really like is put in situations where things aren't going to plan and what issues arise for them from that.
I do actually take a perverse enjoyment in watching a team's frustration and not being able to. I mean, you can see a team that's really drilled a strategy, a play, you know, and then this team comes in from seemingly nowhere and is just able to disrupt it. I do actually like watching those games the best, because watching those skaters try and figure that out, the team figure it out on the hoof, on the fly, you know, it's very interesting to me to see how different teams react to that kind of upset. So, trying to find games where your opponent's being trounced. might be difficult for some teams.
Yeah, there's a few of them that just doesn't happen too often anymore.
Oh, we don't get to see it. Well, this has all been super interesting and great. I think a great thing to start going into the new year. Like, make that one of your New Year's derby commitments to go ahead and enjoy watching yourself a little bit more, being kind to yourself, and then gifting yourself and everybody around you that you love, but also taking that into your training and being able to use it to better you and your team. Remembering to timestamp the video, not the game. Please don't do that. You'll make Juke Boxx mad. But also then going and looking at your opponents and being a bit more open about that, and then setting your goals as well, and referring back to your footage to make sure that your goals are on track and you're working towards what you want to achieve. All feels like a great way to kind of wrap this up. But before I wrap it up, where can we see more of you, Juke Boxx? Because I could listen to you for hours. Even though I don't play anymore, I'm just going to go down the track tomorrow and get my skates on and do all these things.
Oh, well, I am actually going to be at E-Rock coming up in the end of January, early February. I'm going to be doing a few different classes on my experience of being pregnant and being an athlete, and a workshop on session writing, and then also a thing on like game day and tournament prep. So that's going to be really cool. And then I've also started just kind of wanting to like share some skills with skating, and I put one up on balance and roller skating, and it's been pretty cool. It's on like my IGTV channel. I guess I have one of those now.
You're one of those
it's
people now.
Yeah, it's just on my Instagram. It's not edited. It's me talking for 10 minutes while doing squats and talking about weight balance, but it's cool. I think that like it's just the kind of stuff that I explain at the beginning of every session that I do. So I'm like, maybe I can just be like, hey, everyone watch this. It'll save us 15 minutes in the warm-up. I'll see you in a few hours.
That sounds like a great idea. And as somebody who's very balance challenged just in her regular life, I might even tune into that, so we can catch you out on Instagram, and we'll make sure in the show notes, of course, that all your social media is there for people to be able to go along and follow you if they're not following you already. How rude of them. But thank you so much for sharing this knowledge, because I feel like it can be a bit of a dark art. Everybody knows that they should be doing more of it, and it's not always as simple as just sticking on the TV and watching your favourite games. Sometimes it's about being a bit more methodical about it. So thanks so much for talking through your steps and then how you find it successful. And I'm really hoping our listeners will also find that really useful for them through the mince pie haze.
I mean, like, the big thing is like, make it work for you. Hopefully you find a way to make it enjoyable, but also make it like digestible. Like, doing a little bit is better than doing nothing. Eating a donut while working out is still working out. So work towards the positive.
I'm getting that tattooed on my body right now.
I say it to myself a lot.
While squatting and eating donuts. Perfect. It's brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll speak to you again in the new year about more exciting roller derby things. And I always enjoy chatting to you, and I feel like your enthusiasm for roller derby and coaching and playing and skaters and footage watching and everything else just is very infectious. So thank you for sharing that passion with us.
Happy to do it.
Happy holidays from Wisp Sports.
So that's the third episode of season 2 in the skate bag. I'll be back next month with another amazing guest and informative episode. Be sure to subscribe to Wisp Sports on your podcast player. The show notes for this episode can be found on the Lovely Biertrix show page at wispsports.com. And while you're on the website, you'll find a lot more coverage of women's sports, from podcasts to videos, interviews and blogs covering all sports around the world. Follow us and share your comments on social media. We're at Wisp Sports and at Biertrix. We're the first and only global podcast network for women's sports. And we'd love to hear from you if you have any suggestions for guests or would like to tell us what you think of the show. Drop us a line at info@wispsports.com. Until the next time, thank you for listening, we're turning up the volume on women's sports.